On this episode of Delivering Marketing Joy, I talk with Terry McGuire, and he talks about acquisitions and some of the hardest lessons he's learned in business. Hey there, and welcome to another edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. I am your host, Kirby Hasseman, and I am super excited to have a guest with me, a longtime friend and the Senior Vice President of Halo Branded Solutions, Terry McGuire. Terry, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Kirby. Glad to be here.
Cool. So I want to jump right in on questions. One of the ones that occurs to me is as SVP of a large sales organization, you work to help your team grow, but my guess is there's a lot of different big personalities. So how do you manage that and keep everyone happy and on track?
Well, don't make the assumption, first of all, that I do manage that and that I do make everyone happy. Because if I can, there are days where if I can get through the day and only tick a few people off, it's been a good day. The main thing that I've learned over the years, which is really hard for me as kind of a talker, is to listen more than I talk. And I learned that from a person that we both know, Jack Muirherder. Very simple things. Listen more than you talk, and always give the other person the benefit of the doubt, and be patient and be kind, and eventually through all that, the right thing ends up bubbling up.
Yeah, that's, Terry, that's super good advice, and it resonates with me right now because I think sometimes, you get focused on the fact that two people have different things and you start to attack the person and not the issue, and that's really good advice on something like that. So one of the other thing I know is, Halo, the company that you're SVP of, has been in on many acquisitions over the last decade. So what are some of the challenges and then positive things that you've learned from this strategy?
Well, the positive things are, and really kind of one of the challenges merged together, which is acquisitions by nature create change, and acquisitions by create growth. And not just revenue growth. You have growth in terms of the number, what you were talking about before, the number of personalities that you deal with, the different types of personalities and what they bring into it. And so one of the biggest challenges, not just for me in terms of working through acquisitions, but for us as an organization, is how do we keep, one of the things that we're the most proud of is our culture. And so how do we maintain that culture? How do we keep people happy and excited and invigorated about doing their job when we've just changed their job? We've literally changed the company because we've either added more people, or in the case of an acquisition, we've brought them over to Halo and someone moved their cheese, so to speak. Yeah. And so it's always a real difficult balance for us, which is growth is good. We want to grow. Everybody is happier when you grow. But growth does mean change. And that's one of the things we have to manage. I would say we spend more time on culturally how an acquisition will fit in than any other company I've seen in the 30 years I've been in the industry.
Yeah, and I will say, and it just as a kind of point of clarification, certainly, that's how you and I got to know each other. And it was an acquisition within our industry, and I will attest to what you're saying in the sense that I felt like you guys handled that really well for the organization that I was a part of was acquired, and that doesn't always sit well, and I thought you guys handled it really, really well, and I'm not just saying that because we're sitting here on a show. You're telling the truth about the culture piece, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and so well done. So what is a lesson?
Go ahead. No, I was going to say we really sweat and put a lot of time. The financials of an acquisition are what they are, and so we really look at two different things. Is one, in terms of the account executives that will be coming over, how can we make that transition, and how can we make it as smooth as we possibly can? But then two, we look at from a cultural standpoint. I can't tell you the amount of sweat that we put into it. And after an acquisition, we always, anywhere from 2 to 6 months after an acquisition, we meet as a team and we look at where we failed, who was upset, what did we do wrong, how could we do this better. And in no case have we ever had one of those conversations where it's been related to financials or the financials of the acquisition. It's always been, boy, how did we move them over kind of emotionally? Because we rocked their world. And again, I mean, you're a great example of that is, we really take a lot of TLC because an acquisition will not work if the people that are joining come into it unhappy or feeling like they were kind of hit across the head.
No, it's super great example. You're totally right on that because, again, and the company that you acquired was actually from the town I'm in, and so there was a level of stress that probably was even higher for our group than for everybody else. And I thought you guys made me feel a part of the team really quickly, and so yeah. All right, so Terry, what is a lesson that you've learned in business the hard way that others might gain insight from?
Probably the biggest lesson I learned fairly early on was that, and a personal mantra that I've had for 20 years, is that you should always treat the people you do business with like family, but you should never treat your family like people that you do business with, because your family's not run by a profit and loss statement. Right. But in terms of treating people you do business with like family, you need to be honest. You need to show respect. There's a certain amount of unconditional love that you have to have for the people you do business with. You have to accept that you're not perfect because you're sometimes dealing with issues where people are wrong and they did something wrong. And so you need to be compassionate. All the things that you think of in terms of how you would like to be treated, the golden rule thing with your family is really how I try to treat the people that I do business with. And, it's funny, my old college roommate's a family therapist. He's, a published family therapist. And we were talking about it one day 15 or 20 years ago. And I told him that. And he said, hey, man, you mind if I use that with my patients or my clients? Because, that's really good. And I thought, and one of the few days of my life where I thought, hey, I was kind of smart. That's pretty good insight, And but honestly, it has been one of those things, and unfortunately, I have had to learn that and come to that conclusion the hard way, because when I first got into the business, like a lot of kids people in their 20s, man, I just felt like I had to make a mark and I had to be tough and I had to, I just had all these kind of fallacies of how the world ought to be, or how people perceived good employees or good leaders. And over time, I realized that as a general rule, if you try to just be nice and kind and compassionate but fair with other people, that you're going to get that back in return. Mm-hmm. So it was a hard lesson for me to learn. It was like a 10-year, getting smacked across the head kind of thing, and knowing that I was the one that caused it. Mm. And honestly, Kirby, there every given day, I'll get off a phone call with a vendor or with an account executive, and I'll replay and think, man, you probably could have done that one a little better. Yeah. Which I think a lot of us do. Yeah. The only other lesson that I would say, and again, I had to learn the hard way, is, and part of this, honestly, I hope she's never going to watch this, but part of this is from being married too. Man, saying I'm sorry when you know you're wrong is a real easy thing to do, and it really helps repair difficult situations real fast. And whether it's with vendors or account executives, if I know that I say something out of line or that I snapped, if I apologize for that and just accept that I didn't do well, it moves things forward much better.
Boy, that's when in doubt, be kind. When in doubt, yeah, that's really good.
Right, it's pretty simple. You think it's pretty simple, but
simple is different than easy, though, Terry. Simple is different than easy.
Some of us is much easier than others.
Yeah, no, that's a great piece of advice. So you've answered my 3 questions. I give everybody a chance to ask me one question. So if you have one, fire away.
My question for you is really easy.
Okay.
Again, you talk about things that are simple but maybe not easy. So you're doing this. Mm-hmm. you're selling. You know, you've always been a high-performing salesperson. You're a dad. You're a husband. You're writing a book. Those 13 minutes a night that you sleep, what? I mean, what do you dream? There's no way a guy like you has got time in a day. You apparently got a different clock than I have. So what's that all about?
Well, thank you. That's super nice.
How do you do it?
Well, I tell you, it's funny. One of the things I always say, Terry, is whenever anybody asks me if I have time to sleep, I know I'm on the right track. What I've found is I'm not the smartest, I'm not the best looking, I'm not the most talented, but the thing that I have the most control over is how much I'm willing to hustle, how much I'm willing to work. And so I've kind of made a point that, look, for the next 5-10 years, I'm going to work as hard as I can work and try and leave some sort of mark. And frankly, the other piece is, as you know, I've got 2 teenage girls. And in my experience, though I want to share and tell and give them all the lessons that I can, in my experience, showing up and doing is what they pay the most attention to. And so I'm working really hard to be a good example. I mean, that's if I'm being honest. And if I look at things through that lens, that mirror, it tends to make me want to work harder. So I get plenty of sleep. Don't worry.
I've always been, you're one of those guys that I think he's going to post something on Facebook at about 3:45 in the morning because he's halfway through chapter 7 of his book or something. And I'm like, how's he doing?
Well, I appreciate you.
I can't even make it through the 10 o'clock weather on the news, I mean, I'm nodding off and you're doing all that. So, I mean, the good thing is, and I would disagree with one of your comments, you're not only doing it, but you're doing it well.
Oh, thank you.
You're doing it at a high level. And, I mean, this is a great example of a really good idea that you're carrying through and that you're doing very, very well. So it's not just a matter of grinding it out and trying to do more than everybody. You're also doing it better. So congratulations on that.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And I didn't just bring you on there to compliment me, but I really appreciate your insight. And I'm going to take that advice about treating everybody like family, but not treating family like business. That's really good stuff. So thank you very much for being on the show.
I have to tell you this.
Yeah.
And again, hopefully she'll never watch this, but when I was really developing all this stuff, like I would go home and I would have this really good conversation or learn something at work, negotiation wise or whatever. And I would go home and try to pull it on my wife. And she's just like, hey, you're not at work anymore. All right, knock it off. So I learned that the hardest of hard ways is that stuff from the office, when I'm home, I'm seriously like the vice president of taking the garbage out on Wednesday. Idols don't matter much at home.
Yeah, totally agree, man. Well, hey, thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate it, and we'll have to do it again, okay?
All right, take care, Kirby. Have a great weekend.
All right, see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching, but wait! Can you do me a favor? Please subscribe to my channel. If you haven't done it already, the way to do it's right over here. And hey, if you want to watch the last episode, check that out over here. Again, before you leave, subscribe!